Have you been wondering what's been happening in the Cincinnati real estate market? Well, today we're going to talk about what's been going on the first half of the year in 2024 and what we can possibly expect in the second half. I'm Rhonda with Comey and Shepherd Realtors, located here in Cincinnati. Welcome to my outdoor office here in Mason, and we're gonna dive right in. In the first half of 2024, we sold 8,444 units. We thought that was amazing because last year was it just felt really, really slow. And yet when I look at the numbers, there's not much difference. We sold 8,338 units at the beginning of last year. So a very minute difference. And then we ended last year with 16,108 units. So we don't really know where we're gonna end up this year. Our current average sale is $369,872. However, I don't believe that's an accurate number because I found two sales well over $2 million that closed out at $1. Now, I appreciate you folks wanting your privacy, and you may not want everyone knowing what your house sold for, what you paid for it, or as a seller, what you sold it for. However, it really screws up my numbers. Please stop doing this. There are better ways to maintain your privacy, but I digress. So our average sale went down in June, and I believe that's really the reason why. It was down 2% from the 379 high that we had in May. For the first half of the year, we are still up 1% over the prior year. But in the last week, we've had 803 new listings and 380 price reductions, while 100 homes came back to the market after being in contract. Overall, what we're seeing nationally, average inventory is 3.7 months. An even market where neither buyer nor seller has an advantage is around 5 to 6 months of inventory. And basically what that means is if you look at everything on the market and nothing new comes on the market, how long does it take to sell through that inventory? Well, nationally, 3.7 months. Locally, about 1.29 months of inventory. So we still have very low inventory compared to other places. So when we do have an even market, we are usually seeing lower price appreciation, more like that 3 to 5% that we had seen for years and years and years. But it does make it so much easier to find a house that you're interested in buying, and you usually have multiple houses to choose from, and you don't necessarily have to fight with other people to get it. We are definitely seeing more auction properties, more bank-owned properties. We've even seen investors start to sell off their inventory. Every time a unit comes available, they're selling it off, and we've seen multiple investment groups do this because, well, they're in trouble. They lost their funding. The bankers that gave them money are calling back their notes. So even all of those things combined and new construction, it's not really moving the needle on inventory here. Not saying it won't, but currently we're still just over 1 month of inventory. So that inventory will tend to drive our prices and market speed. But we do have some things that could potentially affect us the second half. Number one, the election. Now, regardless of who the candidates end up being, when we have some interesting things going on, which there has been no shortage of interesting news stories coming out between the debate, the possible change of the Democratic nominee, and a possible assassination attempt on President Trump. Normally, these things don't start happening where people lose interest in housing and they're just focused on the economy and the election until later in the season. But because this debate happened so early this year, it's really kind of throwing things off a little bit. So I would say buckle up. It's gonna be a bumpy ride, and we just will not know exactly how much this is going to affect us probably until we see the next month numbers. Usually it just delays people until the following year, as you know, they have concerns about just uncertainty of the economy, policy expectations and changes, and just overall consumer confidence. Number 2, the NAR settlement. If you haven't heard, it's kind of been all over the place, but the National Association of Realtors and several big brokerages were sued by home sellers due to that outcome of that lawsuit. There are going to be changes that are going to affect our entire industry, and it's really going to change how we do business. As a buyer, if you want to go see a house beginning August 15th, I think here locally, August 17th nationally, no longer will any buyer agent commission be published on the MLS. In an effort to be transparent, they're going to take away that information. And in addition, buyers will not be able to enter a home with an agent without signing a buyer representation agreement. And that agreement will just state how much this agent showing you the property will be paid one way or another, whether you ask the seller for it or whether you pay it as a buyer yourself. It just shows what that number is going to be, and everybody knows that information up front before you even go into the house. In the minds of the Department of Justice, they're excited that now the buyers have the opportunity to negotiate that portion of the purchase. But buyers, what I want to know is, how do you feel about that? Are you excited about having to negotiate this, or did you prefer it when sellers just handled it and you just let the chips fall where they may? And lastly, interest rates. Interest rates are lower than they had been, but they are still sitting kind of in the 7s. Coupled with the inflation that people are feeling, many feel like they're drowning. They have put their sale and purchase on hold. Last fall, 3 out of 4 home buyers stopped searching. There are still many who believe that the housing market's gonna crash. What's more interesting is the people who believe there will be a crash also believe that the only way they will ever afford a home is if the market crashes. Now, we are seeing things like down payment assistance programs that are being suggested from the White House. You can see here. I am not against people receiving money and being able to purchase a house, but this is only going to help so many people. I mean, this is a finite amount of money. Do you know what would help everyone be able to afford a home? Not create questions in the minds of sellers about programs they don't know anything about, and not lengthen the time for loan approvals and things like that. Well, lower interest rates. Yes, you've got it. And here's to hoping that we can see those rates lower in the near future. So what can we expect through the end of 2024? Probably longer days on market, possibly a little more inventory, and price appreciation that is much more reasonable. Now, if we do get higher inventory, we could see prices come down a little bit, probably, maybe a little bit more than just a regular seasonal change. But if interest rates do come down, I'm told like the 6% mark is where people start to feel more comfortable and they're willing to go out on a limb and sell their house, buy a house, and we could start to see more activity and more buyers come back to the market. But what do you think? What would it take to get you off the fence to sell or buy? Give us a call or start a conversation in the comments below. Thanks for joining me, and check out this next video because YouTube chose it just for you.